in simplistic terms, it is the loss of the petrodollar status, and it is the realization that it has been the protection, I mean in simplistic terms, the protection of the Saudi kingdom for the past nearly 50 years that has granted us the world reserve currency or the petrodollar status. By extension, the protection of the Saudi kingdom was a deal that OPEC and Saudi Arabia, obviously, would denominate oil in dollars exclusively. And since 1974, nearly 85% of all oil sold across the globe has been in U.S. dollars. And this demand for dollars, this synthetic demand, has given us the luxury of being world reserve. And that has been unchallenged for all of our lifetimes until recently. And there were some pivots or some mile markers along the way that really started to make this become evident that maybe it was beginning to wane. And it started in September of 2021 when Saudi Arabia accepted a joint military cooperation agreement with Russia. That was, in my opinion, marked the beginning of the end of the petrodollar. The Great Reset to me is a hypothetical situation where the world dumps dollars because OPEC and Saudi Arabia announced that they no longer are only going to accept dollars for oil purchases. And if you realize the amount of dollars that have been accumulated globally over the last 50 years, if that happens and there are alternatives to be had, or maybe they just stop taking dollars altogether from a nation that is moving green and has inflated away the value of their currency, and they say, well, we're going to take the new petro yuan, which is immediately convertible into gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. Or maybe they take the new BRICS currency, which we have been told will be backed by commodities, presumably gold. Whatever it is, maybe it's a combination of the yuan, of gold, of the ruble, of the rupee, and others, and it just doesn't have to be dollars anymore. Bang! The whole world dumps dollars, in unison, I would suspect. And as those dollars hit the shore here of the U.S., of North America, after an environment of the last 3 years where asset prices have been blown sky high due to easy money, I guess you could say, where in the last 3.5 years, the U.S. created more money than in the history of the entire country preceding, where asset prices have become distorted, where misallocations of resource and capital have created illusions and anomalies and distortions. And if that happens, and though the dollars come crashing home, the first thing that has to happen to compensate for the loss of purchasing power is for interest rates to spike. And the crazy thing about all of this, when Klaus Schwab said there'll be a great reset, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy, I thought the guy's crazy. But the more you think about it, if an event like that happened, where all of a sudden there was a new petro reserve vehicle, or just the ability to buy oil globally not through dollars, and those dollars get dumped and interest rates spike, it's the perfect storm where asset prices have been blown sky high unrealistically in an environment that is largely illusionary, and they react to a spike in interest rates. They are all, stocks, bonds, and real estate, the three pillars of wealth, are inversely correlated to that event. Could it happen like that? Sure, absolutely it could. Will it? Don't know, but I will tell you that the moves that are being made by the Saudis and by many of the other countries that have expressed interest or have already joined the BRICS nations is very concerning, very frightening. You throw into the mix the Belt Road Initiative and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, you are talking 80% of human population that will move away from the dollar as the sole settlement currency for oil. And if that happens and the dollars hit our shore in a tsunami of inflation, pushing interest rates to the moon, there is your great reset where stocks, bonds, and real estate, in the wake of a crashing dollar, all react inversely to a spike in interest rates. And I think that's exactly how it would happen. And I think it would happen very quickly. It would happen in a matter of hours or days, and as the world recalibrates to what it is and what you have to own in order to possess oil. The Chinese digital yuan, which has been what they have been using for the last 4 years on the Belt Road Initiative. And for your listeners who aren't familiar with that, that's the largest infrastructure project in human history connecting Asia, Africa, South America, and Europe. North of 70% of human population in and of itself right now, 40% of global GDP, most of it is settling on the digital yuan. What better way to roll out a CBDC than to show the veracity of what each nation pledged to the currency. And, I listen to people who I respect tremendously, like Rick Rule, and one of his comments was, well, I don't know if the BRICS is even a starter because it's a non-starter because nations like the European Union, who had a lot of infighting, where some countries are pulling their weight and others aren't, some are working, some are on vacation, different mentalities, different cultures, different history, created not all of the horses running at the same time, pulling the wagon at the same speed. And I agree with that. The hypocrisy of the West, the hegemony of the West, the sanctions of the West is what getting everyone to the table. It's the pegging of commodities that will create equal footing. And if you have distributed ledger technology that shows the veracity, one country pledges oil, one pledges grain, look, in a perfect world, it's gold. And I think gold will, in many respects, be the leading peg. If you look at countries like Turkey, who has already applied to BRICS, they're the largest importers of gold in the world this year, and followed by India, who's already in the BRICS nations. And so the countries, if you look, the countries that want to join the BRICS nations, by and large, have been the largest producers, accumulators of gold in the world. So would gold be the best peg? Yes. Would other commodities work? Perhaps, if you have the ability, through distributed ledger technology, I would argue, to show the veracity and the immutability. And then the last piece of the puzzle in all of this would be, where's it being held? Who's verifying it? You can have a distributed ledger that says this, but who's auditing it? Where's it held? And I think if it were done properly, yeah, I think it would work. But by and large, to me, it would be much more simplistic, much easier, and much better if it were just gold. And if you look at the amount of gold that's being shipped eastward off of the world's exchanges or off of the refineries in Switzerland, record amounts going to China, going to Saudi Arabia, going to India, going to Russia, they're all accumulating and buying and stockpiling commodities, and the largest being gold. So I think it would work using distributed ledger technology, but gold would certainly make it much more simplistic, much more straightforward. I do want to add, though, I do believe it won't be redeemable. If you realize that gold was always redeemable in the U.S. system prior to closing the gold window in '71, President de Gaulle from France proved that redeemable convertible currencies convert. And that's why he sent warships over to New York Harbor filled with dollars, realizing we were printing more money to fund the Vietnam War than we had gold backing, so he demanded redemption. And he got it. And then we closed the gold window. He proved that convertible currencies convert. So I think it will be pegged. I don't think it will be convertible. And the middle ground in all of that would be distributed ledger technology showing the veracity and the immutability of what is supposedly held on the ledger. And that's the key to the whole system, in my opinion, is a new era of showing or cataloging or identifying or showing with evidence the immutability of what it is that is being held backing up the system.